Mic check. 1, 2. Hello, hello. If you guys are here already, let us know if the mic is working out a little bit better this time. We've switched mics, but should still be okay, hopefully. So please let us know if the audio's all right. I think we're gonna have to bridge these two live for the replay. So this is where we're bridging the two streams after the audio issues. So let us know if there's any issues with the audio for now. We'll wait for everyone to start kind of trickling back in for the workshop. Hi, Chris. How's it going? Just let us know if the audio is doing okay, and then we'll get right to the workshop again in just a little bit once we have everyone find their seats again. Hey, Ryan, thank you so much for letting us know. Audio's okay?
No more floof.
No more floof? Who says no more floof? I thought like Shiloh told us no more floof. Oh, there we go. No more floof sounds. All right. Awesome. I like floof though. Floof is good. Okay, so we'll wait until we have our folks come back in. Thank you again so much for helping us deal with these audio issues. I have a sneaking suspicion that Nestle has heard that we're teaching people how to make water and they want to take us down. I'm just kidding. It's probably not what's happening.
Big Fiji is against us.
Big Fiji, big bottle, big water is against us. So I think that's what that is. Because we've actually gotten progressively more tech issues as each one has gone on. So yeah, I think yeah, our friendly Fiji CIA agent, it's not even connected, probably doesn't want us to share this stuff. But yeah, let us know if you guys are doing okay. Thank you so much again for dealing with this stuff. And yeah, we will go right into this as we wait for our folks to filter back in. And let us know again what you guys are drinking. I'm gonna give it just one more minute for folks to find their way back. And I think we are having people find the ship again. Throw all the lifeboats over, life vests overboard and have everyone get reeled in. So thank you, Rabin and Shiloh and Chris and Ashley and Taylor and Maria, everyone who let us know about the audio. You guys are the cool people. It's like having a friend that will tell you have broccoli in your teeth. That's the good. That's your real friend. So yeah, really appreciate it. Okay, so yeah, this Yixing teapots, we really made the big water angry, I think. So yeah, let's jump right back in it. We were talking about Yixing teapots and how, minerals in Yixing clay are, often some of the minerals you'll also find in water. So for example, Yixing clay, a lot of them is primarily silica, and you'll also find silica in bottled water. So when we play with ceramics, when we play with clays to bring out the better sides of our teas, it's kind of like using our water too. So I find that good water is like having an authentic, high-performing Yixing teapot or Tokonami Kyusu or Jianshui, Gaiwan or pot or anything, except you can use it for all teas. And that's not to say that you can't just use good teapots forever. When you combine those two, fantastic water and then a really good clay, set up perfectly with the right tea, you're really going to have some magic come out of your tea brewing process. And then, man, I wish that the people who are missing could see this one. This is very important. When you use the right water, you can get more steeps from your tea. It's not just subjective, saying it tastes better and this doesn't taste as good. You actually get more steeps from your tea, up to 2 times more. This is something we found from our experiments comparing a good water versus our filtered tap, which is not very good. We found that we got more steeps overall from the same tea brewed the same way because our water was better, which is crazy. That means that you can save money with the right water and just use less tea and get more sessions out of your tea leaves. So we'll explain why in just a little bit when we get to the science behind all this stuff. Finally, think of water like a pair of good headphones. It just helps you pick up all the notes that your vendor, supplier, instructor intended for you to pick up. The song is already written, the music's already written. Someone already put the effort into making it sound good. Now, our job as tea brewers is to put those headphones on, put the water, and make sure it's bringing up the tea so we can experience everything that was intended to come out in that tea. So just for example, this is a thought process, like thought experiment. What's your favorite tea? And also, what is that one flavor note you love the most? You just really, really love that taste from that tea. And this should come very, very easily. If you have to wonder, I don't know what that is. Maybe you don't have one, but I don't think so. And everyone has this favorite flavor note that maybe inspired you because it reminded you of something you grew up with, or you just really like that flavor. So what's your favorite tea? And what's that one flavor note or taste or aroma that you just really love from it? Should be like a classic flavor note that we're getting from that tea. And I'll give you guys a second to type. Steven, what's your favorite tea? Let's like this.
Aged oolong.
Okay, so Steven's is aged oolong. Currently, what we're drinking, aged oolong from Taiwan, and the taste.
That aged oolong.
Yeah,
taste.
that aged oolong taste. Kind of like pruny and kind of like dried fruit flavor. That's Steven's favorite flavor profile, flavor note from a tea. For example, for me, I really love the taste of Fujian black tea and that chocolatey milk taste. I really love that taste. We were talking about it tasting like Milo, which is very popular in Asia because I grew up with it, And also, when I'm drinking High Mountain Oolong, that creamy, silky, just buttery taste, I really love that. So milky, chocolatey black tea taste, and also creamy, silky, buttery High Mountain tea taste. So Karen's saying that she likes the floral taste from her jasmine pearls. Yeah, very distinct flavor profile from jasmine pearls. I really, really love them as well. John Suyeon. Suyeon is saying that it's Midnight Sun from Mayleaf, that creamy taste. I totally agree with you. I love that creamy, creamy flavor when a tea comes out like that. Rabain really loves Fanghuang Hongcha. Really loving the blackcurrant and sweet taste. So very specific, I think, memories we have of our favorite teas and what they do for us. And if you're typing, feel free to keep typing and finish your thought. But what's awesome about water is that with the right water, you can make sure to hit that flavor note every single time. There's no guessing, is it going to come out or not? If you're at a friend's house and you want to share that Midnight Sun or that Sencha or that Fanghuang Hongxia you love so much, you can make sure that you're hitting that note so that they can experience exactly what you loved about that tea. That's what water can give us. Dan Taylor says sencha, that grassy umami vegetal. So you guys are loving it. It's a signature taste that you guys are pulling out from these teas. And then also, not only can you hit that flavor note, let's say, with Dan Taylor, you like the grassy umami vegetal taste of sencha. In the previous workshop earlier today, someone also said sencha, but they said that they really love that roasted hiire taste in sencha. So if you guys both love sencha, but you want to play around with what you bring out from the sencha, maybe you can brew it to be more umami, or you can brew it to be more sweet, or you can brew it to be more toasty, using your water to bring out those chemical compounds that are responsible for that grassiness or that umami flavor or that sweet red currant taste, or the aroma. So even aroma is affected by the quality of your water. Shiloh says that properly scented aged jasmine silver needle, a man after my own heart. I really love aged silver needle as well. Probably very unpopular opinion, but I really love aged silver needle. Tastes like summer, he says. Jam, dew-rich melon rind, and earthy nutty notes. Very distinct flavors. And this is why water is so important, because with the right water, something it's got that watermelon rind note can change immediately once you use a different water. So by being aware of that adjustment, you can use your water to bring out exactly what you want from your teas. So, okay, let's get started with this question here. What's the best water for tea? This is a question I get asked so many times. And I think when people ask this, what they're actually asking is, how does my water measure up? So first off, what kind of water are you using right now before we get into this? And there are no right or wrong answers here. You know, what kind of water do you usually use for tea? And how is it? Do you like it? Are you having trouble with it, or are you pretty happy with it? So tap water, I know people use bamboo charcoal for their water. I used bamboo charcoal for a long time as well, many years. Maybe you buy a certain brand of bottled water. What are you using right now for your tea? And again, there's no bad answers, no wrong answers here. And then our friend John Suyon says Brita filtered water, and TD says Crystal Geyser is great. Waters I've worked with as well. Totally agree that Arrowhead sucks for most teas. It's horrible. Palomar Mountain spring water. Chris uses tap water with pure water filter. We were using Vegas tap water for a long time with a Culligan filter. And then for a while I was boiling it with bamboo charcoal. I used a Brita filter for a while too. I used a pure filter. I've done comparisons of all three. Actually, my favorite is actually the pure or the Culligan. Mona uses filtered tap water. In Hong Kong, it's pretty soft, but not too sure. We'll find out. I'm really curious about that as well. Maria uses tap water. Shyla uses Crystal Geyser. Yeah. So a wide range of waters. Like, we have so many different waters. What's going on? And what's making all these waters different? As you're typing out, feel free to finish your message. But just as a quick primer on why they're different, number one, you start with H2O, which is the water molecules, right? But then it's not just water molecules in your water. You also have tiny amounts of these trace minerals, just like, you know, calcium and silica and magnesium and sodium and chlorine and sulfur and carbon, etc. Like, this is the same stuff that's right from the back of the Evian bottle that I have. It says electrolytes and mineral composition. A lot of the bottled water brands have it at the very back. So if you're like, oh my God, there's like sulfur or chlorine in my water. Yeah, you actually have, you know, sulfates and chlorides that are naturally occurring in your water that come up as a result of the water going through the world and picking up things from the minerals as it passes through, from like being rain to going down the mountain to going to your tap. It picks up trace amounts of these minerals that will make the tea taste a little bit different. Yeah. So for example, John Suyon's asking about, you know, charcoal and water. And yes, the charcoal and water is going to, you know, add a little bit of this trace mineral. And then Taylor's using plain tap. I've used Fiji for cold brew. Yeah, we like Fiji as well. And Rabbi, I've heard that you have famous, amazing water. Our friend Jeremy was saying that Rabbi's water, that source water from the mountains, is amazing. So we have quite a range of waters here on chat. So this is important, the trace minerals. I'll explain why. And also your pH level is going to be very important. And usually these are very closely related. And also things like dissolved carbon dioxide will change the pH level of your water as well. And so each water has that unique mineral composition that brings out different flavor notes in each tea. And, you know, just asking, are all teas chemically the same? Are all teas made up of the same chemical components? For example, we know that, you know, all tea comes from the same plant, Camellia sinensis, you know, white, green, yellow, oolong. Oh, I said yellow. Now I can't take it back. Purple tea, Darjeeling, Baliocha, black tea, pu'er tea. It all comes from Camellia sinensis. But do they have the same chemical composition? Yes or no? Should be the easiest answer you answer today. And the answer is, surprise, surprise. You know, our black tea is different from our green tea in terms of flavor, because no, they are different. So yes, teas really do have different chemical compositions. And as a result, those different chemical compositions will favor slightly different waters. And that's why this is so important to get into, because even if you have amazing water for green tea, you may not have amazing water for black tea. And if you have amazing water for pu'er, it might not be as good for white tea. And by having different options with your water, you'll learn how to work with this. We'll talk about in a little bit. It's almost like having different clays available to match with your teas. So is there even a best water for tea? You know, yes and no. So for example, they say, I've heard the saying that the best water for a tea is the water where the tea was grown. So that saying, you know, will take us, if we're talking about Dragon Well, this is a spring called Tiger Running Spring in Hangzhou. very close to the tea producing gardens there. And so in theory, this should be the best water from the region where the tea was grown and picked and processed. And they actually put this through a university study this year, actually, it was a 2020 study. And it turned out to be that this Tiger Running spring water was the best water for Dragonwell, backed up by a blind tasting panel at a university-controlled research study by a panel of experts from China. And yeah, they thought that this water in a blind taste test brought out the best flavors in that Dragonwell, which is really cool on one end, but also really unrealistic, because who is going to Tiger Running Spring to go get water from all the way to Zhejiang just to get water for a Dragonwell? I would love to try this, every day. I'd love to use this water every day, but we can't practically, right? So instead, what we can do is try to use targets for the minerals that might even be similar to the spring to show us what we want in our teas. So here's targets for good water we want to use for tea. You want soft water that's around pH 5.5 to pH 7.5. And by soft water, I mean around 10 to 150 parts per million. Parts per million just means how many minerals there are dissolved in your water per million molecules of water, basically tiny, tiny amounts. So 10 to 150 parts per million. This is actually a little bit high, the 150. I've been very generous with this number because some people do like the taste of slightly harder water. If I'm being really picky, I'm actually going to say 10 to 100 parts per million, is going to be softer water. And you also want this pH range of 5.5 to 7.5, which when I learned about this was very surprising, because right now, I'm not sure if this is the case anywhere else but the US, but there's a big alkaline water trend in the United States where people are like, oh, your body's acidic. You only need to drink alkaline water. Don't drink acidic things. Don't drink too much lemon juice. Don't acidify your body. So alkaline water is the rage here in America. You can pay for, alkalized water, pH 9 and up, pH whatever. But actually what tea likes is slightly acidic, so pH 5.5, to very, very slightly alkaline, almost neutral, pH 7.5. And remember that right down the middle, pH 7 is neutral. When you're going down, lower pH is more acidic water, and then higher pH is more alkaline water. So tea likes soft water with slightly acidic to more or less neutral or very, very softly alkaline water. But why is that? Why doesn't it like alkaline water? What's going on? And what's happening is that in tea, we know that tea has things like polyphenols, which make things bittersweet, and amino acids, which contribute to like the sweetness and the savoriness of tea, and organic acids, which change the way that like oxalic acid. These acids, we don't talk about them very much in tea, but they exist in tea just like they do in coffee, and they're responsible for that poppiness, that brightness of a tea is coming from these organic acids. Now, what happens if you put, alkaline water with something acidic? Well, alkaline water is alkaline because it has stuff in it that is neutralizing the acids. Just in very, very, very basic terms, alkaline water is not acidic because it has things that neutralize acids. It wants to kind of work against the acid. So when you have alkaline water plus tea, which is naturally very rich in these very tasty and very useful acids, you get these muted in alkaline water. So this is why, and you'll find out later, if your water is reaching too much of a high pH, you might not be getting the full brightness and acidity and pleasant like sourness in a tea in a good way if you have alkaline water for your teas. So really recommend sticking to this pH level right here. And again, we go much, much deeper into all of this in the course, but just as a very quick primer, I want you to make sure to reach these targets. And then also one last thing, we want less than 20 parts per million calcium, okay? This is very specific of a target to meet, but this is the one I probably want you to remember the most. If you're gonna take anything away from this workshop, this target, soft water, the pH not being too alkaline, and then also this less than 20 parts per million calcium. Why calcium though? Of all the minerals we talked about, again, water has calcium and magnesium and potassium and sulfates and bicarbonates and chlorides and silica. There's so many of them at the very back of each bottle. Why are we fixating on calcium? And this is very important. Remember what I said about getting more steeps out of your tea if you have the right water? What is happening is that it's actually a function of calcium. When your calcium is above 20 parts per million, your tea will actually take longer to extract. So instead of taking 3 minutes, it might take another minute to maybe 4 or 5 minutes to get what you want from the tea. And then also it can limit how much you extract just overall. And this is not from what we know. These are lab studies. 1971 study and 2008 study with Anderson and others, and I'm gonna kill my French friends.
Do it.
Monsieur, I don't know how to say his last name. This is a French study, or Francophone study at the very least. They found that calcium limited what we got from our teas and also made it take longer to extract tea using the same leaf, using the same parameters. And let me explain why, because I don't want to just be like, oh, they said so and I said so, so just follow me, okay? We're going to figure out why this matters. And this is what I want you to have the confidence to do is, dig into the science a little bit so you know exactly why this water stuff matters so much. So you guys ready? Okay, a little stretch. And yes, TD is explaining to us why the alkaline water is affecting these organic acids so much. Absolutely correct. There's, alkaline and acidic water is determined by how much hydroxide is in the water, and high pH has higher of these that like to pull off those molecules. So thank you, TD. But in a nutshell, you don't have to memorize the science as long as you can kind of make, because I don't go teach science every day. I actually can, but I try to figure out the best way to put it in my head so that when I'm actually brewing tea, I'm like, okay, acidic is going to get muted by alkaline. Very easy for me to just adjust according to the brewing process. So if you want to go all the way, understand, that it is that, imagine a hydroxide ion pulling off those molecules, you can do that. And then also you can just say, acidic alkaline can kind of cancel each other out, however you want to treat this. And this will probably feel just as, same thing with what we're about to do. However simple or however sophisticated you'd like to understand this concept, whatever works for you. But either way, we're going to throw it back to high school science. You must remember this, right? An area of high concentration versus an area of low concentration. What happens when you have these two babies? And by area of high concentration, just in general, we just mean, an area with lots of minerals or lots of things going on over here. And then an area of low concentration is an area that has just fewer minerals going on over here, right? What's going to happen when you have this difference between an area that has a lot of minerals, high concentration area, and an area of low concentration? And I promise this will matter in a little bit. I'm going to explain why calcium is so important to monitor in your teas. And I think you guys know, an area of minerals and things in an area of high concentration will want to go towards an area of low concentration. They're going to want to migrate over there. They're going to go hang out. Like, you guys are lonely over here. Let's go party. So this area of high concentration will want to go over here because they want to reach equilibrium. They want to be about even, right? So high concentration area, minerals will migrate from here and go over here and go hang out over here. So why is that important? Imagine then using that concept. We have a tea leaf. So this is an area of tea leaf with 5 parts per million calcium. This is actually what they determined to be the content of a tea leaf is 5 parts per million calcium, more or less, depending on the tea. So imagine you have a tea leaf here, and then also you have your water, which will have different amounts of calcium, right? Let's say it's 5 parts per million calcium. This is super soft. What's going to happen? 5 parts per million calcium here and 5 parts per million calcium over there. What's going to happen to these guys? And because they're equal, they are already at equilibrium. Nothing is really going to happen, just in general terms. You know, they're pretty okay. They're pretty content. Nothing will happen in this case. So 5 to 5, nothing happens. And then what if your water is, let's say, 20, which is what I said the limit is. So 20 parts per million is less soft. It's a little bit harder, but it's not bad, you know? What's going to happen? You have 5 here and 20 here. And remember, when, you know, this, you know, osmotic pressure, this, you know, migration between areas of concentration is happening, the more of a difference there is, the more in a rush, you know, the system will be to balance it out. So 20 and 5 is not a big difference. So while you'll see some migration from, you know, your water into the tea leaf, it's going to be just a little bit. Not too bad, just a little bit. But then what if you have, you know, HEW, which is what I call hard-ass water. This is my water in Las Vegas, 72 parts per million calcium, way off from our target, but this is my truth. And as we're going to see, some of y'all are packing the 72 parts per million calcium in your tap water too. So what happens if you have really, really hard water? Yo, these guys are like, oh my God, they're so lonely over there. 5 of them. Let's go raid them. You know, you're gonna have this area rush over here, you know, because they're just way off balance. So you're gonna have all this calcium rush over into the tea leaf from your water in mass, you know, like very, very quickly and very, very decisively. It's gonna rush over in. So from your water, calcium's gonna go into tea leaf. Okay, so okay, Rhea, I get it. You're really good at teaching about with arrows. Calcium goes in the tea leaf, big deal. So what? What's the big deal? Okay, so almost done with this one. So calcium, you know, having figured out that they want to go party inside the tea leaf, they're like, yeah, you know, you're an area of low concentration. Let's make you high. Why? Okay, never mind. Calcium is in the tea leaf now, right? There's a lot of calcium that came inside. Calcium is not, you know, I guess calcium likes to party and also gets into bad, you know, setups and toxic relationships sometimes. And it hangs out with this thing it shouldn't hang out with. It's called pectin. And pectin is it's a larger molecule that's used by the tea leaf and many, many other plants to hold its structure. It's just something that helps hold the leaf when, like, for example, there's a frost, like the leaf will become more supple because of the pectin. If there's UV rays, the pectin can help protect the leaf. You can actually taste pectin in tea. I learned from my friend David Tillerman from Tillerman Tea. He had this wonderful post on pectin in High Mountain Oolong. Pectin is partially why High Mountain Oolong is so fluffy and bouncy. It's because of this pectin here. So pectin and calcium, they're like, hey, what's up? Like they party way too much and they bind together to create what's called a calcium pectin complex, or, you know, there's a couple different ways you can call this, but let's call it calcium pectin complex. And by complex, they kind of bind together and they, you know, they in short terms, they harden the leaf up a bit. The leaf seizes up a bit, because pectin's already a big molecule and calcium makes it even bigger when it kind of hangs out. So they're just like this rigid thing that helps, it just creates a structure. And just like Daniela from Tika Chai is saying, she uses pectin in her jelly because pectin gives things structure. It makes things jiggly. But we don't want our tea leaves to be jiggly. We want them to give us tea. So when this calcium pectin complex occurs, this is bad news for us when we're brewing tea, because what happens? They get in the way. They're the guys who are standing right in front of the door, you know, like they're just in the way. And everyone else, all the other good things in your tea leaf, your amino acids and your polyphenols and, you know, your volatiles, the things that make tea taste good, they got to get through these guys before we can taste them, before we can brew them out. So the more calcium you have in your water, the more this disastrous relationship will happen, this calcium pectin complex. And that's exactly why you actually get fewer steeps from your tea when you have high calcium water. This is actually the reason, among other things. So it just reduces our ability to get what we want from the tea because this shit is in the way. It's just why are you here? And you can't undo this because they just get along really, really, really well. So that's what's happening. And also as a result, because you're not getting as much extraction, your extraction efficiency is down. That means you need to use more leaf to get the same amount of flavor. That's why when you have high calcium water, think about it. You'll find out in a little bit if your water is high in calcium. If you hear from friends, they're like, oh, I've got like 15 steeps out of this tea, or 20 steeps, or 25, or 40. You're like, what? Like, what are you doing? Why? I got like 8, or I got like 5. It might not be you. It might be your water. It's really, really important to make sure that we know about what's going on in our water. And then also when you use water that's low in calcium, if you do have low calcium water, you can actually get away with using less tea and getting just as good of a flavor. This is actually, why the Tea Curious water formula is such a good, extracting formula. It's a high extraction recipe. It's a low calcium one. So I notice a lot of people are like, oh, it's a little bit bitter, or like, why is the tea coming out so strong? And I'm like, just reduce the amount of tea you're using, because this recipe and any low calcium water that's well designed will give you more steeps out of the same tea. So Stephen and I can't think of the last time I put 8 grams into a gaiwan. Like we're using actually we're using quite a lot today, but we usually use like 2 grams, 3 grams at the most. Sometimes we'll even put a gram in a gaiwan and call it a day, or we'll even put 1 leaf. I'm not kidding. I'll put 1 leaf of a tea that I know is very powerful. I'll pull in a bowl and I'll just drink it, and there's flavor. And that's thanks to our water. I used to think I was a good brewer for a long time. And then when I learned all this stuff, I'm like, oh, I'm not a good brewer. My water's just good. Or maybe a little bit of both. And then to answer your question about the tea stains and tea scum, surprise, surprise, this is calcium going on too. So these 2 teas are the same. These are both Dragonwell. And then these 2 teas are the same. These are both black tea. And this stuff that's happening on the surface, this is also calcium having another toxic relationship with tea polyphenols and many other things. So just calcium likes to just do things it's not supposed to. And so it forms these complexes, again, with polyphenols and a little bit of everything in the tea to make what's called tea scum. And you'll see it floating on the surface. And this is proof that calcium does like to make these structures that we don't want in tea. You can see it with your own eyes. And again, this is not what happens immediately after you brew tea. This is this will happen in like an hour or 2 after you brew with a very, very hard water. This is again Evian. Evian, for reference, is 80 parts per million calcium. So this is why it's so horrible like this. This is a very extreme example. But again, think about it, if you're sending tea out to a friend, or you sell tea, or you're sharing tea at someone else's house, and then you leave a cup of tea, and then later on they come back to it, they're like, oh my God, is this safe? What's going on, When really it's just the calcium doing really weird things with your tea. And then some examples of low calcium waters. A lot of spring water is low calcium. It really depends. Tea Curious water recipe is a low calcium water. Poland Spring, Volvic, Fiji. I think a lot of our Canadian friends have found that they have low calcium water, but it depends where too. We had a Canadian friend let us know that they had pretty high calcium water. So it really depends. That's the crazy thing. We'll figure out how to find out how your water is in a little bit. High calcium waters include a lot of city water, like a lot. Evian is a high calcium water. Aqua Panna, Contrex from France. Very, very high calcium waters. So yeah, just a check-in. How did you guys feel about that whole calcium explanation? Was it easy? Was it hard? Was it confusing? Was it a little bit too much or not enough? And what are your biggest takeaways so far? And is there anything I can clarify for you? Just, questions or concerns? I'm seeing that, Robin was saying that he wishes his science classes in college were like this. Yeah. We did titrations in college, and by the end of it, I was like, what is a titration? I don't even know what a titration is. Same thing with Suyeon. Wish all my classes were like this. I'm glad that it's working out for you guys. And yeah, calcium's complicated, and we'll see how we can figure out how to work with this guy in a bit. But yeah, let us know if you guys are doing okay. If there's anything I can kind of, am I talking too fast? Am I talking too slow? You guys are good. I think you guys should be good though. And I'm asking this question because if you get this, if this was easy to you, or even if it was a little bit, confusing, but you're like, yeah, I think I get it. I think I understand. If you can handle this level of, putting science in tea, this is as much as we need to go. Once you get this is about the level that we need to be able to dig into in order to confidently use water for tea and actually understand. So you're there already. You're there. Yeah. So again, if you're just like, in outer space, then maybe this is going to be a little bit too difficult. But if it's just a tiny bit confusing, or, more or less you kind of get it, you're like, yeah, more or less I get it. You're totally good. You can totally handle figuring out what to do with your water for tea. So congratulations. I think you'll be fine. So let me switch over to the rest of my slides here really quick. Let us know if you're doing okay, if you have any questions. And now, if you are so, really jazzed about this stuff, I would like to test you to make sure that you can use this, even just sit with us for, an hour now without taking anything away. So I will actually ask you some questions now. So yeah, Chris is asking, does Pure or Brita filter out any calcium? This is the problem. Calcium really is a bad boy, isn't it? Brita and Pure don't take out calcium very well. They don't take out hardness very well. So this is why we used to use Pure and Collagen and Brita. And I would have to replace my filters once every 2 weeks in order to do this. So, it's just, yeah, crazy, crazy, crazy. So we're going to test if you were able to, if you're able to kind of get at least a little bit of what we were talking about. I want you not just to have the book knowledge, but also how to apply it. So the workshop's called Unlocking Your Teas. Let's unlock them. Let's do it. So if we learned calcium can reduce tea extraction, can you think of any teas that might benefit from reduced extraction? Can you think of any teas that you might want to not get everything out of the tea leaf? So remember, when calcium is hanging out with pectin and making it hard to brew things, we're not getting all the goodness from inside the tea leaf. We're not extracting everything. We're not getting as much as we could extract. But are there any situations that you can think of when high calcium might be okay for a tea? I'm gonna put on the Jeopardy sound. No, 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 no. What is bad? What is good tea for calcium? And there are no wrong no. I mean, there's no bad answer here. I am asking a lot from you to answer this question right now. So if you're not sure, just drop it in chat anyway. We can always, revise our answers if they're not right. But I have a suspicion that you're going to be able to answer this better than you think you will. So let's see. Rabayin says bad show. Okay. Suyeon says bitter teas. Daniela says gunpowder green. MP says low quality or bruised tea. Okay. Connie says cold brew. Maria says pu'er. Pu'er rehab. Maybe we can use calcium to rehab our pu'er. Shiloh says poor quality greens. Chachai T says pu'er. Okay. Good, good, good. Thank you for being brave. So I'm going to tell you what I think. Number one. Totally agree with you, Rabayin. Dank show pu'er. So if you said pu'er, Maria said pu'er too. Yeah, I totally agree. I like show. I like show pu'er, but I don't want to be in the back of the basement. Like if show pu'er is a basement, I want to be in the basement next to the stairs where there's still some airflow and I can still breathe. I don't want to be in the corner of the show pu'er basement where someone might kill me or something's growing, So you can use like a high calcium water will kind of dial back a little bit and make sure that pu'er is not crazy dank or crazy sour or crazy just funky, you know. So perfect. You guys got it. Cha chai tea, same thing, you know. Some deng shopor. Another one, more bittersweet sencha. So bittersweet, more on the bitter side of the sencha spectrum. If the sencha is very like, you know, just grippy and, you know, a little bit too bitter, gunpowder also falls under this category of a green tea that's not that great. Shiloh says poor quality greens. Absolutely. Those poor quality greens are just so bitter. They're just not that pleasant, not that smooth. So do we want to extract all that bitterness from them? Not always. So you can actually use a high calcium water to your advantage by brewing, you know, a bitter sencha with it to just chill it out a little bit. Think about it too. If you're with a friend who doesn't like the taste of bitter green tea, maybe you won't be in a hurry to get a low calcium water because it might smooth it out for them a little bit. So perfect. You guys are nailing this. I told you guys answered this pretty well. MP2, you know, low quality tea. A lot of the bad green teas tend to be bruised. So perfect. And then finally, my last answer is really, really bitter shang, especially like young, unruly shang. So friends who said pu'er again, you know, those shang pu'er that they're just a little bit too much. Yeah, you can use them with a high calcium water to just tone them down a little bit, just based on what you'd like to do. And this is not just me theorizing either. Like we've tested this, and actually Vegas tap water does surprisingly well with Dragonwell because it's so friggin' hard. It kills all of the vegetal grassy flavors, and it's more just, it tastes like a genmai cha. It tastes toasty. But in fact, this was proven or found, at least, it's just one study, right? We need multiple studies to know it's true. But there's this recent study that came out last year that showed that American consumers actually preferred high calcium water for their green tea. They did a side-by-side of, this is awesome, it's from In Pursuit of Tea. So you know how some of the university studies, they use like crappy bag tea to do their research? They used In Pursuit of Tea, a company we really respect out of New York City and the East Coast. They took their Zhejiang green, it's like a green snail kind of tea, and they brewed it with high calcium water from the New York area. I think it's from Ithaca. And they brewed it with Poland Spring, which if you've heard anyone talk about, you know, water online, Poland Spring comes up as a brand that people love for green tea. And what happened is the American consumers preferred their high calcium water over the high quality, tried and tested Poland Spring, which is a lot of people's favorite water for green tea. And this is not just consumers that they found from the street and they're like, oh, I don't know who these people are. Let's just, you know, it was tea drinkers who drank loose leaf tea at least 3 to 5 times a week. So these people like tea, and they prefer their high calcium water. So what's going on there? I don't, what is this? You know, what they said is that the green tea was more sweet, less vegetal, less grassy, less astringent, and just less intense. So they preferred this high calcium water. Do you think that we'd have the same result in China or Japan, where green teas are produced typically? If any of you have, you know, worked with Japanese tea producers or Japanese, you know, tea vendors, you'll hear that, you know, some bitterness, some astringency is actually valued in a green tea in China and Japan and many other places. And they have very, very soft water there. So they found basically there's a cultural difference between what waters we tend to like, and I think just a personal difference, right? Like we're different people, we all like different things, we all like different teas. It makes sense that we'll prefer slightly different waters for what we love that much in tea. So yeah, this is crazy. And I also think there's a little bit of that familiarity bias there. So basically familiarity bias means you're used to something, therefore you're naturally drawn to it. This is why you like the taste of your mom's cookies, or, you know, you like the taste of curry the way that your grandma made it. If you go to a restaurant, no matter how good the restaurant is, it doesn't match what grandma made, what grandpa made. So it's just not as good. I have a feeling that these American consumers here in Ithaca, they got used to drinking the green tea with their tap water. So they liked it, you know? So there's a lot going on here. And as tea people, we can try to be aware of these complex kind of interplays of tea and water to be better hosts and to bring out more sides from our tea, which is, yeah, you guys nailed it. They basically nailed it. You guys nailed it more than any other workshop did. You guys nailed it. You guys are awesome. So yeah. So Din Taylor's saying, would you still not recommend going up above 20 parts per million? Once you know the rules, you can break them if you want. The only issue with the going above 20 is that you're not getting as much mileage from your tea. But personally, if you're, dealing with what like Daniela was saying, like a gunpowder green, but you want to smooth it out, I wouldn't be so worried about not getting as much from my tea, because gunpowder green, it's relatively cheap and pretty inexpensive to use, so it's okay. So know the rules, which is calcium at 20 parts per million will make sure you get more from your teas. But if you want to break them, you can break them. Whatever works to bring out what story you want to tell with your teas. One last little example. Let's say you're traveling to Paris. Paris, that place has got really hard water. What tea do you bring on a trip like that? Do you bring a, first flush Darjeeling? Do you bring some Dansong? Or do you want to bring, what do you want to bring? Again, Paris has very hard water. What do you want to bring to Paris? And I'm asking this because I know a lot of you share tea or send tea out to friends or customers or, fellow community members. By knowing what their water is like, and then they get back to you like, oh, I didn't really get what you got from that tea, you can kind of maybe have a suspicion that maybe their water is different from mine. So what I would personally bring to Paris, which I did when I visited, I brought like some roasty oolongs and some just, like basic high mountain oolong that I didn't mind being more toasty, and some black tea. So yeah, you can apply all this stuff. Okay. So let's see how your water measures up now. You must be curious, how's my water, doing on the scale of calcium and pH. So to do this, all you gotta do is to search your city plus water quality report parts per million. So pull up another tab on Google or Bing or, I don't know, Linux, whatever Linux uses for browser. Your city plus water quality report parts per million. I'm putting this parts per million here because you should probably get slightly better responses. And it can take some time, I think, to find the right water report sometimes, but you should be able to find it with some work. So, for example, this is my water report here. So I typed in, again, Las Vegas water quality report, parts per million. And it just so happens the very first one is a good one. If you have any issues finding this too, let me know. I know a lot of our, for example, Canadian friends had some issues finding their measurements, but American folks often get really good measurements, and Europe is a hit or miss. Asia is a hit or miss, but depending, should be able to find these somewhere. Okay, so we're looking for calcium, right? Calcium right here, and then also pH. If you can't find calcium, which I recommend trying to look for calcium, you can also look for total dissolved solids and hardness, but start with calcium and pH first, okay? So for me, I've got calcium level 72. So this is the tea killer. This is the tea just muting. Yeah, it's just not great, you guys. Like, my Dragonwell tastes like gunpowder green tea, which is not a bad taste, but you don't want your Dragonwell to taste like gunpowder green tea. You want to taste like Dragonwell. So this is my issue. This is why I struggled for such a long time. I also got less from my teas for a long time. And then pH is at 7.8. We want it to be maximum 7.5 to make sure we're getting more from our teas. 7.8 is a little bit high, so I'm probably muting some of that acidic, bright, awesome, kind of like vibrant flavors in my tea. So Las Vegas water is not good for green tea. It's not good for poppy teas. It just mutes everything. It kind of, it's like a dull sound, like donk, donk, donk. That's what my tea sounds like when you're brewing out of that water. So, so let's see. So John Suyon says that it's 10 parts per million calcium. Okay, so you're good. So now you know that your water is effectively extracting out what your teas are. But if you have slightly bitter teas, it might be because your tea is getting really, really extracted. So you can even say, I'm going to dial back on the amount of tea that I use, because you actually need less tea to get more from it, Suyeon. And then MP in Kansas City, calcium is 36, pH 9.5. Oh my God, it's really, really high. What the hell is going on over there in Kansas City? So, MP, your tea is going to want a lower calcium to bring out, more from it. And then the pH is just making, do you find that like your teas, especially like Dansong or Darjeeling, teas that like a lot of like a brightness and aroma, they're a little bit kind of like muddy, a little bit too, you don't get as much brightness from them. I found that in KC, and I've done a lot of work in KC, they really like black tea there, and I think it's because of the calcium content. Kathleen from Cha Chai Tea says, I've got hardness at 180 milligrams per liter. That's pretty high. So the thing with hardness, I have hardness here too, Kathleen. Hardness doesn't tell us exactly what the hardness is, but calcium is included in the hardness. So I'm guessing that you probably have that calcium above 20 parts per million. So yeah, this is yeah, very, I would suspect that your calcium level is high, Kathleen from Cha Chai Tea. Chris says from San Diego, calcium is 50 to 52, pH is 8. So again, you're muting. So the higher the calcium, the higher the pH, basically the more muting your water is. And yes, Defless C, pH will fluctuate based on how long you keep your water around. And this is what we've actually been messing around with our water. If you leave your water out, you can actually drop the pH of it, because carbon will start dissolving into the water and creating what's called carbonic acid. It's going to drop the pH because it's becoming more acidic. So that's something you can actually do to like work with these pH problems. So thank you, Deflacy. And MP is saying, I always thought that some of my Darjeelings were meh. I really want to see what they taste like with a lower pH. Yeah, absolutely. Same thing with the calcium. Marco, oh my goodness. I think you might have the record for the calcium reading. 148 parts per million. What are they doing over there? You guys drinking milk over there? Oh my God. But at least your pH is relatively okay, so yeah. Looks like we are really, we have a lot of hard water going on over here. But don't worry, I worked with it for a long time. I'm going to show you what we did to figure out a good solution for that. Rabain says Montreal is pH 7, calcium 31, so slightly on the hard side, but not too bad. And then Mona saying, if the report doesn't show calcium or pH, what are some other parameters? So if you can't find calcium or pH, a great start is total dissolved solids. Look at how ridiculous this number is. 555 total dissolved solids. This is very, very, very high. So Mona, if you can find this, that'd be great. pH, there's nothing there's no replacement for pH, but I would say calcium, figuring out what your total dissolved solids is a really, really, really good start. So as long as you can find this, and then we'll discuss in the course itself, you can actually figure out what a water might seem like, might end up being based on the geology of your local area. So for example, Las Vegas, we're surrounded by rocks and like lots of just limestone everywhere. It's just bunches of calcium in rock form. That's why we have such a high calcium content. So I suspect, Marco, I don't know anything about Chicago's geology, but you guys have some calcium over there too. And that's why so many different regions in the world have such different waters. Japan, for example, has very, very soft water. And it's because they have a geological kind of environment that just makes it so that their water is very soft. Lucky folks. Din Taylor says Kirkland has pH 8.1 to 8.5, calcium 23.7, not too bad. Seattle area has relatively good water, I would say. So Shiloh says Portland is moderately hard at 80 parts per million or 5 grains per gallon. So we need to break it down. Also, if Mona and anyone else who can't find a measurement, a good shortcut is if your stuff stains very easily with white water stains, or if your soap doesn't suds up very easily, it's a very good sign you have high high calcium water. Like for example, the kettle, like you'll see like I have like stains on it all the time from like just when we wash it in the tap. And that's just the calcium. It's not because I'm lazy and don't want to scrub things off. So if you have any issues finding this, I found that our friends in Europe and Asia had, and Canada too, had slightly more difficult time finding this report. But there's going to be ways to find it. So let me know after the workshop and I can help you out. And Connie says, Japanese tea never tastes the same to me after being in Japan. Yeah, absolutely. That's because Japan has really, really friggin' soft water. They like are playing 4D chess with the teas. So yeah. So now we know how your water is doing. And if this gets more complicated when you put a filter in and then a bamboo charcoal and then, you know, all these other additives will change these mineral contents and pH and how long you store it and everything else and how you pour the tea. So many variables that can change the taste of your tea. My ask for you just for now is to be aware that they're happening so you're not caught off guard by the fact that it is happening. So yeah, and don't worry, there are ways to work around it. So yeah, so now you know. And if you have any issues, let us know. We can help you find your water report or figure out a way to look for it. So again, it's going to be pH 5.5 to 7.5, calcium less than 20. And yes, while you can use calcium to play around with, I want you to start here because I want you to taste what your tea is supposed to taste like. A lot of the tea growing regions actually have very soft water. So if you want to know what your tea maker originally intended, you're probably going to want to use softer water than harder water, just as a general term. So start here and then play with your parameters later. Just really quick, tea and water pairings. White and green tea, they like very soft waters, 10 to 30 parts per million total, or TDS. So you can find the TDS also on your water overall. Just a very, very general, really quick rundown I want to do. You'll notice that as we get darker, you want heavier water. Soft to slightly hard waters, 10 to 100. You know, oolong and sheng can handle slightly harder water. And it depends because oolong and sheng they're very complex teas. So there's quite a range that you can use to bring out different flavors. So for example, on the 10, your oolong is going to taste more poppy and bright and aromatic and vegetal and grassy. Then towards the middle, it's going to become more floral and smooth and you know, and then towards the tail end, it's going to be a little bit more toasty and fruity, and it's really cool to be able to play with it. You know, same tea, different waters. And then finally, black tea and show. They like slightly harder waters. Notice that I'm going a little bit higher here. This is total parts per million for your water, by the way, not calcium. Just in general, everything summed up together in your water. You can find it as total dissolved solids or parts per million or grains of hardness. I think in Europe, you guys use grains of hardness. I think you guys use parts per million too, actually, as a total. Anyway, I'm putting them a little bit higher because black tea can be so kind of like sour and tannic. Same thing with show, can be kind of sour and funky. So I'm like, we don't need to extract you guys all the way. You can kind of chill out a little bit. So you can go start a little bit heavier. So soft to moderately hard waters, again, depending on what you want to taste. If you want your black teas to be soft and floral and bright, use a little bit more soft. If you want your black tea to taste more bassy and heavy and kind of like, you know, rounded with a little bit less complexity, you know, a little bit harder water. And I'm going to tell you how we get the targets for these because we use Vegas tap water. How do we even work with a 555 TDS, you know? How do we even work from there? And honestly, I'm just going to cut right to the chase. The best solution that we found after testing hundreds of waters and testing so many methods, I've tried bamboo charcoal and Maifan stones, like mineral stones, and, you know, Brita filters and pure filters and Culligan. And I used Trader Joe's Artesian for like 3 years, lugging water from Trader Joe's in these big bottles that made me feel really awful because I was just using boiled water all the time. Instead, we now use custom water recipes. And by custom water recipe, what I mean is you start with a blank water, which is a reverse osmosis or purified water. There's nothing in it. So if you saw the water report for this, it'd be very little to no minerals. Start with this, and then you add the minerals of your choice, which will include calcium less than 20, okay? You add minerals of your choice using common household ingredients like baking soda and Epsom salt, which baking soda is sodium bicarbonate and Epsom salt is magnesium sulfate. The same things you'd find in your water. You add the minerals to the blank water and you get exactly the kind of water that you want for your tea. And this method is used widely in coffee. This is actually where I got a lot of my inspiration working on the Tea Curious, water stuff. The coffee world, this is standard for them. Like they use this all the time. If you ask people in coffee, either they know what their calcium levels are or like their hardness levels are, or they're well aware that it's important. Same thing in beer. People who are home brewing will get like chemistry kits to make sure that the water they're starting with to make their beer will make it so that the beer has certain like qualities. Like your water can make your beer more hoppy or more malty or more basey. You want to use a different water for a stout, like a chocolatey stout versus like a kind of like sour IPA or something like that. So they use these water recipes, all the time. Same thing with food. For example, I read that there's a restaurant that uses like a New York bagel recipe, and they insist on remineralizing their water to match New York City water targets, which is really, really cool. I think this is really awesome. I've also heard of some like high-end omakase sushi restaurants. They'll fly in water from their hometown to make their rice. And on one level, I'm like, yo, that's so extra. But on a bigger level, I'm like, yo, that's so amazing. How awesome is that? And if it makes sense, they want to make their rice taste the way that they probably grew up with, right? So this is not like a new concept, this custom water recipe stuff. It might seem a little complicated, but it's standard in coffee, it's standard in beer, and we play around a lot with it in the food world. And what's awesome about these custom water recipes is that they're very affordable to do. It costs me maybe like 10 cents a liter or less, maybe 5 cents a liter to make amazing water. For reference, the water I was using beforehand was like $2.50 like a gallon, $2.50 for like a bottle. So it's quite expensive. And also it's very sustainable. You're not going to be using like balls and piling up like just plastic everywhere. The only issue is that RO water does produce water waste, but I just feel like it's better than having the plastic bottles. RO water will produce about 1 gallon of water per about 4 gallons of waste. But then you can also use this waste and either recycle it back into the system or, use it to water your plants or something like that. And then it's also very reliable and predictable because you can customize exactly what's in your water. So the problem with something like, resting mineral stones in your water or using like a Jan Shui water storage jar to rest your water in, you don't know what the minerals are that are in the water. What if the jar is high in calcium and your water is already high in calcium and it's just enough to like put above that 20 parts per million? You don't have as much control. Custom water recipes, I just feel like you have an amazing amount of control over what you want your water to be and how you can make it bring out the best in your teas. So yeah, I mean, you can just make your tea come out however you want to. You want basy black tea? Let your water handle it. You want floral black tea? Let your water handle it, So yeah, this is what we actually use. This is a Tea Curious open water recipe. We dropped this, I think, last month. 8 years in the making, a long time. And I used a prototype of this recipe again to win the blind brewing at Tea Masters Cup. So all I did is I used common household ingredients and added them to water. And what it includes is sodium carbonate, calcium chloride, magnesium sulfate, and potassium bicarb. And if these seem a little scary to put in water, I also was a little intimidated. I'm like, oh my God, what will people say if I put sodium carbonate in my water? It sounds kind of scary, right? Especially as someone, I don't work in, industrial water treatment. These sounded a little bit intimidating at first until you find out that, these guys are very commonly used in food applications. So sodium carbonate is used in ramen to make like noodles, like bouncy. Calcium chloride is used as a pickling and jarring salt. You can easily find it at a grocery store here in the United States. Magnesium sulfate is Epsom salt, unflavored, unscented Epsom salt, used for taking a bath and like muscle relaxant. And then potassium bicarbonate is just a low sodium table salt replacement that you use. So these are all really common ingredients, and they cost almost nothing to buy to get your water. Oh, Rabbi Yin's sound is on again.
What's going on?
I don't know. Rabbi Yin, can you hear us and everyone else? Oh my goodness. Oof. What should we do? Switch it over? Hold on. It's the fuzz. That's so funny. You want to try it out? I might test.
Hey.
Going okay?
Hey, hello.
No, it's still having issues. Gosh darn.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's just is there any way to reset the audio? I'm not sure. What do you think is going on?
Alright, let's get all this stuff.
Should we just